Intimate Partner Violence and Homelessness by Rachel Booth. The reasons are different for men and women. The underlying causes for homelessness are not always thought of as differing between the sexes and are often simplified. I run a homeless outreach volunteer group. In 2015, I created a survey to ascertain perceptions and thoughts about homelessness, including the participants' ideas of the main causes of homelessness. This was an informal survey with a small sample of my own acquaintances in multiple geographies, various socioeconomic statuses, and political affiliations. The respondents were not vetted for any particular characteristics, and all of the people willing to send back a response were represented. The questions were open-ended, and so there were multiple answers by each participant. Out of 36 people, only 6 believed that any type of abuse is a cause of homelessness. None of the questions differentiated between men and women. The remaining 24 respondents answered either substance abuse or mental health as their opinion of the main causes of homelessness. For many men, the top causes are substance abuse, mental health issues, and loss of a job. For women, it is domestic partner violence. Half of all homeless women and children are retreating from an abusive situation, with 1/4 having been physically abused in the previous year. The argument. Although the actual numbers vary depending on the study and the city, intimate partner violence is an overwhelmingly dominant precursor to homelessness among women. When a woman chooses to leave an abusive home, she may be faced with no place to go, thus causing her to choose between staying in an unsafe home or possibly becoming homeless. Although there are domestic violence shelters, the need is much greater than the availability. The lack of financial resources or marketable job skills may make it difficult for a woman to secure a job that creates self-sufficiency. Additionally, many women continue to be abused and harassed at work by their ex-partners, causing a high rate of job loss. Without a stable source of income, it is difficult to maintain a safe living situation. Intimate partner violence is a crime, and the corresponding criminal charges or association with a criminal may lead a woman to eviction from her apartment. Safe home. When a woman chooses to leave her abusive home, she faces the reality of finding a safe place to stay. According to Long, of families experiencing domestic violence, 38% become homeless when they leave their abusers. One of the aspects of abuse is isolation. Due to the controlling nature of abuse, many women become separated from family and friends by their abuser. Because of this, they may be forced to seek shelter with the domestic violence program. Unfortunately, the need is much higher than the availability for women seeking safe shelter. For women fortunate enough to secure shelter, most programs only provide a temporary place to stay, typically from 30 to 60 days. The National Network to End Domestic Violence conducted a nationwide survey of domestic violence programs where they took a snapshot of the services provided in one day by programs that serve individuals and families affected by domestic violence. The most recent annual one-day census was completed on September 14, 2016, and reported on the types of services provided and the unmet need for 1,762 programs in all 50 states, the District of Columbia, and 4 U.S. territories. There were 73,000 people that received services on that day, and 12,000 people that were turned away due to a lack of program resources. Of those 12,000 people, 8,000 were seeking shelter or housing services. Here you can see an overview of the different types of services provided for both children, adults, and the total. So total in the one day for emergency shelter for both children and adults was 25,912. On that same day in the state of Utah, there were 828 people served in domestic violence programs and 95 people that were turned away. disability. Victims of intimate partner violence are more likely to miss time at work and/or lose their jobs than people that have not experienced this same trauma. Although the effects are stronger during the time the victim is involved with the abuser, employment is likely to be impacted for at least 2 years following the abuse. In 4 different studies conducted between 2000 and 2005, the rate of job loss ranged from 52% to 91% for women that had reported the abuse happening within the prior year. Many recent abuse survivors are only able to work an average of 30 hours a week or fewer due to both the direct and indirect effects of the abuse, such as chronic health problems due to prolonged anxiety. Criminal association and eviction. Intimate partner violence is an illegal activity. Many housing complexes have a policy where a person can be evicted for being associated with criminal activity. If a domestic dispute is occurring and someone calls the police, they will come to the home. Oftentimes, both parties may be arrested until the situation can be determined. This can lead to immediate eviction from an apartment. If the woman is not arrested, she may still be evicted due to there being a criminal in the home. With the threat of violence or damage to the property, the landlord may not tolerate the activity. Even if a landlord has compassion for the victim and does not evict her immediately from the property, other tenants may not feel safe with the threat of violence, and there may be additional complaints made against the victim, which may ultimately result in eviction. Women Act. The Violence Against Women Act was first enacted to protect survivors of domestic violence in 1994. The bill was signed into law in 2013 and was strengthened so that any federally funded housing projects were not allowed to evict women based on the criminal activity of their abusive ex-partner. According to the ACLU, local laws can still supersede the federal mandate. Many individual counties across the country have laws where a person can be evicted for calling the police multiple times. In Rochester County, New York, if a person calls the police 3 times, their apartment contract may be terminated, which may leave them homeless. Homelessness and sociology. Homelessness is a major issue in the field of sociology. Sociologists study different groups of people within the community. Homelessness is a problem that has been addressed in many different ways, none of which have been able to completely solve the problem. One major theory that attempts to describe homelessness is conflict theory, which explores the conflicts between social groups such as the rich and the poor. Based on this theory, homelessness is due to capitalism, which definitely applies to women that do not have the available resources or a stable income. Many of them become homeless due to their lack of financial means. Although the actual figures can vary depending on the source and the location, one thing that is unmistakable is that women that leave an abusive partner are at a higher risk for homelessness. When a victim musters the strength to leave the situation, she may immediately find herself without a safe place to go. Many women turn to domestic violence programs, but the need outweighs the supply, and not everyone is fortunate enough to secure a room, which may leave the woman seeking refuge at an emergency shelter or even sleeping on the street. Many victims of intimate partner violence continue to suffer the effects of the abuse when the continual harassment and stalking of the perpetrator impact employment, with the majority of women losing their jobs within the first year following the abuse. A woman may also find her housing in jeopardy due to the criminal actions of the abuser. There is no simple way to address the effects of intimate partner violence. Although sociology attempts to address this as a community issue, the consequences can still have long-term effects for the victims.